Sitting down with a holographic alien to watch Netflix after you just come back from a restaurant where you had a fine piece of lab-made Wagyu beef? What about finally getting to grips with black holes? Or getting a totally new face with which to kiss your sweet-talking robotic lover? And our favorite, imagine scientists implanting memories that never happened. This has all been made possible in the last 10 years. Number 50. Let's start with something that is a testament to human progress. Now with brain-computer interfaces a fairly recent development, a computer can detect brain signals and make another device move. In 2021, there was a report about a man paralyzed from the neck down who moved stuff with robot arms just by thinking about it. Something similar had happened before, but never with the person moving using their own mind to move two limbs. Number 49. Next is a thing of beauty, and something that's very important when we're talking about human evolution. The question is, and has been for a long time, when did humans get creative? When did we start creating art? It's important not just because it shows drawing skills, but because we started taking pleasure from creative activities. It was part of a big step in our evolution. So it was a huge deal in 2018 when scientists said they might have found what could be the first ever figurative drawing of an animal. Located in a cave on an island in Indonesia, the art features a bunch of human hands. Other drawings include a massive cow-like creature, as well as an overweight deer pig, the animal known as a babirusa. These paintings had been seen before by scientists, but it took some time to age them. It was only recently that they said they were around 45,000 years old, making them the oldest human cave art there is, to date at least. The people who made it were fully modern. They were just like us. They had all of the capacity and tools to do any painting that they liked, said one scientist. In case some of you budding scientists are now thinking that the oldest cave art is actually a bunch of animals in Chauvet Cave in France, those drawings are supposed to only be about 37,000 years old. So, that little bit of Indonesian art is one of the most important finds in history. Number 48. You might not think art is cool, and instead get all excited about weapons. Well, if that's the way things work for you, you should know that in 2014, the US said it now had a new weapon that had been successfully tested. That was a laser weapon system called the ANSEC-3, which is currently on the USS Ponce. It fires lasers, of course, and that means it can take stuff out with the utmost precision, something that conventional weapons might not be able to do. An example given was destroying an engine when you don't want to blow something up and take lives. This is apparently good against asymmetric threats, not regular armies but insurgents or even public resistance. Now for something that could change the way you live. Number 47. Self-driving cars have been around for some time, but it was only in the last decade that we saw what was called fully self-driving cars whizzing around our streets. Okay, so Elon Musk got in trouble for calling them fully self-driving, given that right now his Teslas should never just be left alone. But what's happened in the last decade is impressive. For instance, in 2018 in Switzerland, we saw the world's first fully self-driving electric bus. Since then, more of these buses have popped up in various countries, and you can bet they'll become a fixture in your life pretty soon. Number 46. Sticking with techie stuff, it was around a decade ago that we saw the first smart doorbell. Basically, these things are hooked up to someone's phone, so when you press the bell, you might get an audio or video of who's there. It's a great invention for those of us who are away from their homes for long parts of the day, and drug dealers, as is this next one. Number 45. Okay, so drones have been around for a while. In 1936, the first one was tested, called the Queen Bee. But it wasn't until recently that these were used to deliver food and, in some circumstances, much-needed medical supplies. These things are the future, no doubt about it. Number 44. In 2012, we sent a little unmanned vehicle up to Mars, which was the first. This was NASA's Curiosity rover. It won't help you in your life, but this next one might one day. Number 43. In 2013, a great breakthrough was made in helping people that can't walk get back on their feet. This invention was called the ReWalk exoskeleton, a device that helps them move around, looking a bit like something from RoboCop. Hopefully one day these things will be available to everyone who's lost the use of their legs. This next one is also super cool. Number 42. One thing that's come far over the last decade is artificial intelligence, the technology that will change the world we live in and perhaps one day terminate all the people on it. The AI outfit that is continually impressing us is the London-based Alphabet-owned DeepMind. Researchers there have created what's called a neural network, which is basically a kind of computerized brain. In 2016, after a bit of training, this computer beat the world's best Go player, a strategy game that is not dissimilar to chess. Later, another program called AlphaZero kicked everyone's butts at different types of games. In 2020, the latest DeepMind program to shock the world learned to play 57 games on the Atari 2600 suite, and it was soon playing all of them as good as, if not better than, humans. Number 41. Another AI that's been used for over the last decade is looking at lots and lots of data, then using that data to find a pattern. This might revolutionize diagnostic health procedures, and it's already done so with our eyes. Researchers in the US use such a program to detect something called age-related macular degeneration. Similar programs have also been used to detect cancer cells. It's this kind of stuff that could change your life one day. Number 40. This is something that just came out of an Elon Musk-backed artificial intelligence company in the US, OpenAI, called GPT-3, Generative Pre-training. It can basically write stories itself, and it can do it well. It also can converse with people so well that some of the early users were really spooked out. CNBC wrote, "While it might be brilliant in many ways in its current form, it's certainly got its flaws. Developers have noticed that GPT-3 is prone to spouting out racist and sexist language, even when the prompt is something harmless. You have to ask yourself what this kind of AI will be like in another 10 years, a la Black Mirror. There's every possibility such a technology will be able to scan everything you've ever said online and then replicate how you communicate. You might not even have to really die, not in the digital sense." As for this next one, this will also become a big part of your life, and probably in a negative way. Number 39. What's called deepfake technology is pretty amazing. It can make someone say things they've never said, and you can't tell that voice is computer-generated. It also can create a video that looks just like the real person, but isn't. This can be pretty scary when you consider that a manipulated video with manipulated audio could have a world leader declaring war on another country, or you telling all your friends on Facebook that you just pooped in your bed for fun. None of this seemed possible not that long ago. Number 38. Virtual reality is another thing that's progressed a lot of late. Sure, there were old-school VR headsets back in the 1960s, but they were pretty uninspiring. For years after that, they seemed like something from the future, unattainable for the average person. But then in 2012, a Kickstarter project introduced us to something called Oculus. No sooner than you could say anti-competitive, Mark Zuckerberg bought the company, and VR headsets were coming to a living room near you. These days, medical students are using them to do virtual surgeries, and soldiers are using them for training purposes. Number 37. You can imagine watching a movie back in the 80s, if you're that old, and some mad scientist-type character starts talking about an airless tire. Well, they have those things now. In 2017, Michelin's airless Vision tire came on the scene, and it was 3D printed too. Imagine never getting a flat again. We're told that they're just getting better and better, and this game-changing technology will become quite the norm in the near future. But maybe this next one won't. Number 36. You all know about the Internet of Things, right? It's basically gadgets that are digitally connected, and it's a great scientific discovery. But the IoT can also be dangerous, because what if someone can hack the gadgets you trust? This happened in 2018 with what are called net-connected vibrators. Yeah, you heard that right. These connected sex toys store data about the users. They could be used remotely, so a lover far away in another city could play around with his partner. These long-distance sex toys are apparently all the rage now. But one company based in Hong Kong was secretly collecting very private data on the user, and that ended with a lawsuit. Number 35. You might recall a similar story about so-called smart TVs, devices that came on the scene more than a decade ago but have improved immensely as of late. In 2018, reports surfaced that these things were so advanced they were actually spying in people's houses. They could potentially record video and audio and access the data on your computer. We imagine that could be useful to the FBI, or a hacker, or just someone who wants to know more about your habits so they can sell stuff to you. Guys like Mr. Zuckerberg. This next one is even scarier. Number 34. If you talked about facial recognition technology a decade ago, not many people would have known what you were talking about. These days, it's everywhere, something the writer George Orwell saw back in the 40s. Big Brother-style computer tech is no longer fiction. There's a running meme on the internet that says his book 1984 was supposed to be a sci-fi dystopia, not a blueprint for the government to follow. It's true though, facial recognition is almost omnipresent. You are being watched. In 2021, Wired UK wrote, "New technology will enable London's Metropolitan Police to process historic images from CCTV feeds, social media, and other sources in a bid to track down suspects." Activists are now saying our streets are being turned into police lineups. This tech, using advanced AI, can look at your face and then use a massive database to see who you are. It doesn't matter if you've never had your photo taken by the cops. Somewhere in the digital universe, there will be an image of you. In 2016, Amazon brought out its recognition software, but a lot of pressure from the public forced the company to ban the sale of the technology to the cops. Still, don't go thinking that face recognition isn't coming to a street near you sometime soon, if it's not already there. This next one is not so scary. Number 33. In 2013, scientists discovered a new species of human. It was Homo naledi, something close to us modern humans, but also close to our older relatives who didn't want to come down from the trees. Homo naledi walked around present-day South Africa 236,000 to 335,000 years ago. It seems they didn't believe in an afterlife, but unlike other animals, they buried their dead. Number 32. We imagine some astronomers out there have gotten this far and are now thinking, man, come on, we've done loads of cool stuff as of late. And that's true. In 2017, there was an astronomical revolution when the European Space Agency's Gaia satellite started mapping the stars like never before. It mapped 1.7 billion stars with varying precision and also estimated distances, so now we have a much better idea of what space looks like. National Geographic wrote, among the stories Gaia data can now tell are how the Milky Way galaxy evolved into its current configuration, how quickly the local universe is expanding, how common large planets are, whether there's evidence for advanced extraterrestrial technologies, and what's going on with about 14,000 asteroids in our own solar system. And here's another thing you probably have not heard about, but should have. Number 31. While you've been getting yourself hooked on YouTube over the last decade, some scientists have been figuring out a way to 3D print parts of the human body. It's called bioprinting. In 2012, a group of scientists implanted a tracheal splint in a baby that was suffering from a disease called tracheobronchomalacia. There's a lot of work to be done in this area. What scientists are really after is a machine that can print an entire organ. We think we'd be okay with just printing a good old bit of steak, and we're in luck. Number 30. Imagine if you could eat a steak and a cow didn't have to die for it to happen. Imagine if a succulent piece of the best Japanese beef could be made in a lab, and that was the norm. This would have a profound effect on the environment, and on a cow's well-being, and on people in the world that don't get enough food to eat. In 2013, German scientists made the first laboratory hamburger from cells. In 2020, in Singapore, a restaurant called 1880 started serving cultured meat. Just recently, in 2021, media reports said that Japanese scientists had successfully lab-produced some of the very expensive Wagyu beef. It looked and tasted like the real thing. Right now, the problem is that it takes weeks to produce and it's expensive. So it's not as if it'll appear in your local eatery anytime soon. Still, scientists are working on that becoming a possibility. As an example, in 2020, an Israeli startup called SuperMeat opened its doors to journalists who could order cultured meat and see how it was made. Now for something we imagine you already use. Number 29. This tech is called centralized work communications, which is just a posh way of saying apps that let people work together remotely. For instance, in 2013, Slack came out, and now it's used by 10 million people every day. Number 28. And that brings us to video conferencing. The Zoom app came out in 2011, so we can almost say it happened in the last decade. Still, it's only been the past few years that having a video meeting online has become a really big thing. This next one hasn't yet taken off, but we think it will. Number 27. In 2013, Google brought out something that looked as though it came from the future. Those were the Google Glass Smart Spectacles. Since then, there have been various other similar technologies that have come out. With this tech, you can walk down the street with your glasses on, and by pressing buttons on the side or giving vocal signals, control what's happening in the glasses. You can do much more too. In 2013, a surgeon named Dr. Raphael Grossman became the first man to wear some smart specs while he performed surgery. In 2018, some Chinese cops wore them and they could take a picture of someone and send that image to a database where a matching name could be found. Now that's some real-life RoboCop stuff there. Still, we bet you've seen all of 0 people wearing those devices. They just haven't been very popular. That might change soon when companies such as Facebook along with Ray-Ban bring out smart glasses that are a bit less annoying. And this brings us to the next thing in this realm of innovation. Number 26. Such smart glasses use something called augmented reality, which is basically something added to the normal reality you live in. A good example of this was the game Pokemon Go, something that just a few years back kicked off a craze of zombies walking around looking for a Japanese rat. AR games have since become a big deal, as has using AR apps on your phone to do things like see some virtual furniture in your living room, not only to see what it looks like but to know if it fits. Still, the best AR device of late never really took off. Number 25. That was Microsoft's HoloLens, which came out in 2016. The first video demos of this device made it look spectacular. You could project holograms of your friends and family in your living room, or fight aliens and shoot them off your kitchen counter. The opportunities were endless. But as so often happens with computer technology, there was a massive buzz. We were told this was world-changing, and HoloLens ended up making a splash about as big as a mosquito hitting the surface of Lake Victoria. Still, such a headset is a cool technology and may have healthcare and military applications, but it seems the consumer either can't afford it or doesn't care for chasing Conquer the Squirrel up the house stairs. Now for something everyone loves. Number 24. Do you remember those days getting all tangled up in your headphone cables as you tried to lift weights at the gym? That doesn't happen anymore thanks to wireless earbuds. These things are great and were only invented back in 2014. That year, a German startup called Bragi raised $3.3 million in 45 days on a Kickstarter campaign for this very technology. In 2016, Apple released their predictably expensive version of the things, and these days you can pick up a pair on Lazada that cost you less than the price of an American-made Frappuccino. If that's not cool, you can also block the world out with noise-canceling tech. Number 23. There's been another transformation in the world over the last decade, and that's related to dating. We don't mean your dalliances with virtual girls dressed in skimpy police uniforms, but how you actually meet people. Tinder came out in 2012, so it's a bit older than the decade. In 2014, it was seeing around 1 billion global swipes a day, and as of 2021, there have been a massive 65 billion matches around the world. In short, Tinder is everywhere. Still, some sources say we are lonelier than ever. Many people have something called dating hesitancy now. Let's also not forget that many users have overdosed on editing apps so much that they look about as close to their profile picture as they do to a North Pacific albatross. This is a danger in the digital age, people not getting out there and keeping it real with other folks. That's one reason why sex bots are now on the scene. Number 22. Just remember, we did say craziest scientific discoveries, not greatest. Advanced sex bots came on the scene during the last decade, and now they can chat with you as well as take care of your carnal needs. Do you remember those inflatable sex dolls from the past, those with an expression on their face that was reminiscent of that famous painting called The Scream? Those have become a thing of the past. One company is currently advertising its sex bots as the ultimate AI talking sex robot companion, the perfect girlfriend who knows you best. They can apparently chat for hours on end, and they never ever complain. They're able to use machine learning AI to learn about you. You can, of course, get it on with them, and some even have very human body temperatures of 37 degrees Celsius. Imagine what that'll be like in the near future. It's worrying, really. Because with all that loneliness and fear of being seen in the real world, these bots might just end up replacing humans. Well, if you can afford the $3,000 and a bit bucks to buy one. Number 21. Even if you're not into expensive ladies, there are cheaper options these days for companionship. Just like in the movie Her, you can get apps that will talk to you. Here are some recent reviews of one of those apps. It does have self-reflection built in and often discusses emotions and memorable periods in life. It often seeks for your positive qualities and gives affirmation around those. I look forward to each talk because I never know when I'm going to have some laughs or I'm going to sit back with new knowledge and coping skills. I'm becoming a more balanced person each day. According to the website, millions of people are using the app already. Many of them are in their late teens. These things are only gonna get better, so one day your AI friend might indeed dream of electric sheep. This next one we imagine most of you have interacted with already. Number 20. We all like to go out for a meal every so often, and many of you might have noticed that many restaurants have some electric dude coming to the table to give you stuff. It wasn't like that a decade ago. In 2020, Forbes wrote robotic restaurants are the future, citing various statistics talking about how much money is being invested in this area. Again, it's all down to artificial intelligence. But we should also talk about automation, something that has taken off during the last decade. Number 19. These days, you sometimes buy food or buy groceries and don't have to interact with a human. It's fast and convenient, although someone somewhere has lost a job. Still, the way automation is talked about by some folks mirrors something Karl Marx said in the past. That is, one day all the really bad, dangerous, backbreaking jobs will be done by machines, and the humans who had those jobs can spend much of their lives sitting next to picturesque streams, writing Walt Whitman-esque poetry, and thinking about their next great enterprise. It's that or unemployment on a dystopian scale. If you don't believe us, this is what the media was saying in 2021. In February, McKinsey Global Institute predicted that 45 million Americans, 1/4 of the workforce, would lose their jobs to automation. Now for some examples. Number 18. One of the biggest employers in the world is the belly-bulging business McDonald's. You already know that there are now fewer people saying, "Would you like fries with that?" since some counters are now automated. The company has said that all this automation will just change the nature of the jobs, but let's see how that works out. This is what former US CEO of McDonald's said in 2016. I was at the National Restaurant Show yesterday, and if you look at the robotic devices that are coming into the restaurant industry, it's cheaper to buy a $35,000 robotic arm than it is to hire a new employee who's inefficient making $15 an hour bagging French fries. It's nonsense, and it's very destructive, and it's inflationary, and it's going to cause job loss across this country like you're not going to believe. Here's one more example. Number 17. You don't have to look too far back to find a time when people would have been surprised if you told them in the future you'll be able to do grocery shopping and not have to interact with one single employee. Amazon currently has such stores where you can pick things off the shelves, scan them on your phone, and walk out having paid with your phone. The company just brought out a smart shopping cart with the tech explained by one website like this. The cart uses a combination of computer vision algorithms and sensor fusion to identify items you put in the cart. When you exit through the store's Amazon Dash cart lane, sensors automatically identify the cart and your payment is processed using the credit card on your Amazon account. Number 16. So this means these days you can go out and buy a bottle of wine without interacting with anyone. You can go back home and stream a movie that's been handpicked for you by an algorithm according to your preferences and data. And then you can have crazy sex with a beautiful robot woman or man, and you won't have to talk or touch another human as you do it. Oh, what a blast. But soon you'll be able to do this with your friends feeling as if they're in the same room. And that's because of something called the metaverse. These are 3D virtual worlds in which you can interact with others providing that they're wearing some kind of virtual and augmented reality headset. But this next one is even scarier. Number 15. Some of you might not know that sometimes when you read a story in the news, it's been written by a robot. It's true, although generally the AI only writes very simple stories such as basic sports stories. Right now, the forecast is that this is going to get much bigger. We doubt nuanced, in-depth stories will be taken over by robots anytime soon, because that's just too complicated. We also doubt your infographic scriptwriter will be replaced by AI for a while, just because it won't be able to be random and say things such as the aqua albatross was annoyingly accepting of alliteration. You'll miss us when we're gone. Number 14. In 2019, Google announced something that might explain why technology is going to get much more advanced. The company said that it had achieved quantum supremacy. You might wonder what that is, and the answer is vague. It really is a much more powerful computer that can solve problems much faster than an ordinary computer. We're going to let an expert explain the details. He said, a quantum computer works instead with qubits, not bits. They are no longer binary, but instead can be in a number of different states. By exploiting the unusual behavior described in quantum mechanics, scientists are able to build quantum computers, which operate at that more complex and therefore more powerful level. But this next one is even more far out. Number 13. In 2019, scientists who work with the thing we call space said for the first time ever they'd taken an image of a black hole. Before that, they just knew they were there because of what happens around them. This everything-eating monster is more than 50 million light-years from us in a galaxy far away called Messier 87. Number 12. And if that doesn't get you excited, in 2020 NASA announced that for the first time it could say with certainty that it had found water on the moon. It'll be a while though until we have a water park up there. Number 11. One of the other giant scientific discoveries around this time was physicists finally finding what they'd been looking for with their Large Hadron Collider, an invention of the last decade we should point out. It was a particle which before 2012 was only a theory. This is the Higgs boson particle. It's taken billions of dollars to find it, and while its discovery won't really affect your life, physicists now have a more complete picture of the very nature of stuff. Hopefully you'll never need this next technology. Number 10. Imagine you had an accident and lost an arm or a leg. Sure, you might get fitted with a prosthetic limb, but until recently, you wouldn't have been doing many complex movements with that limb. Bionic limbs are now here, and they use all kinds of next-generation technologies to read signals from your muscles, or in some cases, the brain. Most of them have built-in computers as well as sensors, which gives the person much more maneuverability than the old-school prosthetic limbs. None of this would have been possible if it weren't for the massive advances in computer technology we've already discussed. Number 9. What if, for some unfortunate reason, you lost your face? That would not be good, would it? But in 2005, something amazing happened in this regard. It was the first face transplant ever. The recipient's name was Isabelle Denore. Prior to the transplant, she'd been taking some sleeping pills and passed out. It seems that her devoted pet Labrador was upset about this and tried to wake her up, but it perhaps went overboard with the nudging and it chewed her face off. She then got a new one thanks to some skilled surgeons and a brain-dead female donor. She later told the press, "It takes an awful lot of time to get used to someone else's face." Unfortunately, the immunosuppressive drug she was on caused 2 cancers, and it seems her body at times rejected the new face. She died about a decade later. Number 8. In 2005, scientists found a new planet in our solar system. Although it's only a dwarf planet, it's been named Eris, and its moon is Dysnomia. Okay, back to robots. Number 7. In 2014, scientists in the US had an idea to create a bunch of robots based on termites. As you may know, millions of termites build massive structures by sending signals to each other. Like ants, they're a superorganism. Imagine if robots could do that. That's what the scientists did after a while. They programmed robots to work together rather than program each one separately. Live Science explained, each robot is equipped with sensors to detect the presence of a brick or another robot in its path. If the robot senses a brick, it can lift and deposit the cargo to the next open spot at the construction site. The robots are programmed to move along a grid, and they follow traffic laws that dictate where they move around and place bricks. based on the specific structure. This was a huge development in terms of what our robot friends will be able to accomplish in the years to come. Number 6. You all know that space travel costs a fortune, and one reason why is that once the rocket has been used, it cannot be used again. This is a problem that SpaceX's Elon Musk wanted to solve. In 2017, he did just that, after his Falcon 9 rocket went into space and came back down again, ready to have another go at space travel at a time in the future. As you'll now see, in the last decade, we found our oldest relative. Number 5. Scientists found the oldest hominid fossil ever. Hominids, by the way, are bipedal primate mammals, so that includes us humans. Prior to this find, the oldest was Lucy, clocking in at 3.9 to 2.9 million years ago. But the new one found in Ethiopia is estimated to be 4.4 million years old. So this is our oldest ancestor that we know of. She was something in between an ape and a human. She could chill in the trees or go for a stroll, but she never dragged her knuckles. Number 4. Some more good news for all of you out there is the huge advancements made in something called gene therapy. Basically, when someone's really sick, their DNA is changed to reverse the disease. It's hoped that one day we'll be able to use this to get rid of cancers and to reduce all these problems associated with getting old. In 2017, there was a huge breakthrough when, for the first time ever, gene therapy was used to cure a teenage boy of his sickle cell disease. But wait, it gets even better. Number 3. There was another breakthrough in 2017 using something called CRISPR. What's that, you might ask? The full name is Clustered Regularly Interspaced Short Palindromic Repeats. If that means nothing to you, that's fine. It's bacteria, and it works as a defense for things such as invading viruses. We can use it to edit genes and get rid of a disease. In 2017, the Oregon Health and Science University said it had successfully used CRISPR to remove heart disease from an embryo. All this is still quite new, but it shows us that in the near future we might really get a handle on killer diseases. But can we cure blindness? Number 2. Imagine giving sight to the 40-odd million people around the world that can't see a thing, not to mention the 250 million others out there that can barely see. What you need to help these people are bionic eyes, and over the last decade, we've made them. In 2015, you could read the headline, "Manchester Professor Conducts World's First Bionic Eye Implant." You could then read more stories about how more advanced bionic eyes are using nanowires to connect everything and could at some point in the near future be better than normal eyes. That's the future, though. Right now, there are people walking around with less advanced bionic eyes consisting of a super tiny microchip being placed onto the person's retina. They then wear some special glasses hooked up to some AI, and once again the person can see. The Guardian explained, the glasses then project this image as an infrared beam back through the eye to the chip, which transforms it into an electrical signal that travels back through the retina cells and into the brain. The brain then interprets the signal as if it were natural vision. That is amazing. But we like this next one more, just because we love the power to give false memories to people. Number 1. You'd be a bit like a god. Imagine it, making people believe something that had happened and it didn't. A bit like Inception, but less confusing. In 2014, the media talked about neuroscience breakthrough. It happened at an MIT laboratory in the US. One particular scientist there, probably looking a bit like one of those mad scientists from the movies, put a mouse in a box. He then closed the door and watched. The mouse didn't walk around sniffing stuff as the other mice did before it. It just froze, in absolute terror. It was rigid, traumatized. What had it seen? The ghost of a cat? A pile of cocaine it had once been hooked on? The answer is it had seen nothing at all. Let us explain. The scientist and his colleagues had been working for years on identifying the brain cells related to the encoding of a single memory. They did that, and then they manipulated the individual neurons associated with objects, time, and space. And that's what makes up memories. This part of the brain of the rat that they worked on was the hippocampus. And to cut a long story short, they gave the rat a false memory of walking into a box and getting an electric shock. So when it did go into the box, it remembered, and so it froze in the utter fear of getting another jolt. One of the researchers explained, our study showed that the false memory and genuine memory are based on very similar, almost identical brain mechanisms. It is difficult for the false memory bearer to distinguish between them. He also added, using ominous language, that this technology is now already happening and we can't ignore it. We need to think deeply about it right now. Because imagine what this could do to humans. Could we take out all bad memories and put in new ones? Which sounds a bit like the movie Total Recall, which was based on a much better story by the author Philip K. Dick. We are some way off implanting people with false memories or messing around with real memories, and there are countless ethical concerns, but just how long will it be until this is a thing of reality for humans? If it isn't already a reality and you're not just being messed with. Now you need to watch Science Experiments That Went Horribly Wrong, or have a look at the CIA's secret time travel program. Real crazy research.